Ferrari and McLaren. Based on last season, they are the most anticipated teams on the eve of the 2025 Formula One Championship. The teams from Woking and Maranello have both focused on reducing bulk to maximize aerodynamics as much as possible. However, differences remain, with the SF-25 and the MCL39 reflecting different compromise choices. In a championship where gaps could be measured in hundredths of a second, though, it will be the human factor rather than the cars that makes the difference. There are reasons for optimism on both sides. If one had to name the favorites for the new season, the choice would inevitably fall on Ferrari and McLaren. This is not so much due to what has been seen of the new single-seaters, since Red Bull and Mercedes have yet to reveal their cars and no direct track comparisons have been made. The confidence instead stems from the strength of Woking and Maranello's late 2024 Formula One projects, which showed no significant drivability issues or yet-to-be-understood phenomena. While Red Bull and Mercedes must focus more on drive predictability and operational window breadth, McLaren's primary goal for 2025 is simply to improve aerodynamic efficiency, as former Ferrari engineer and current McLaren team principal Andrea Stella has clearly stated on several occasions. A similar situation is evident at Ferrari, where Charles Leclerc has highlighted how the Maranello team's approach has evolved. He noted that by the end of 2023, the areas requiring improvement were obvious due to clear weaknesses that needed to be addressed. In contrast, the following season presented a different scenario, as the car was generally well-balanced. While certain adjustments became necessary when updates created unexpected issues, the team ultimately developed a strong and competitive package. According to the Monegasque driver, their main objective with the new car is not to focus on fixing fundamental flaws, but rather to refine every aspect with incremental improvements. This strategic shift means that unlike in previous years, Ferrari and McLaren begin the 2025 season without major technical uncertainties, allowing them to concentrate solely on enhancing performance. There was therefore a major effort beneath the surface. In presenting their respective cars, representatives from both teams emphasized the work done to reduce bulk, which is crucial in modern Formula One to facilitate development. Given the stringent restrictions on aerodynamic appendages, bodywork has become the most important element in managing airflow, shielding the floor from turbulence, and channeling air into the gearbox diffuser area. Hence, the importance of compacting components to the extreme under the engine cover to give the aerodynamics department greater freedom. Ferrari's new technical director, Leclerc, explained that the primary objective of the SF-25 project was to create more space to accelerate development, both aerodynamically and overall. He mentioned that the SF-24 had been quite competitive at the end of the previous season, but updating it and finding additional performance had become increasingly challenging, which made it necessary to find more room to speed up the development process. The comments of the French engineer echo those from McLaren's Andrea Stella, as reported by the Italian media. Andrea Stella stated that McLaren had essentially innovated every fundamental component of the car's architecture to achieve performance improvements, not just through marginal gains but by exploring additional development opportunities. He explained that some modifications focused on aerodynamics, while others aimed to enhance mechanical grip. He further emphasized that virtually every aspect of the chassis had been optimized, from the front wing to the transmission and the rear impact structure. On this front, the work done by both teams is remarkable, further hollowing out the side pods, an operation that also benefits the aerodynamic efficiency of the floor. It will also be interesting to see how much the reduction in bulk will offer development opportunities, with Andrea Stella and Vasseur having already announced updates for the early races of the season. So let's briefly compare the two philosophies. Despite similarities, differences remain between the two rivals, with certain design choices reflecting different compromises. The suspensions, for example, serve as a litmus test for how much mechanical behavior is sacrificed in favor of aerodynamic efficiency. The impression is that McLaren prioritizes the latter more, starting with the rear suspension, featuring a very laid-down pushrod angled forward. The angles involved make the setup less effective in activating the internal springs and dampers compared to Ferrari's pull rod, which has a less extreme inclination but also poses more obstruction to airflow in the lower section. Another element reinforcing this impression is the pronounced height offsets between McLaren's suspension arms, both at the front and rear, which are significantly more extreme than Ferrari's. The MCL39 single-seater appears to focus more on airflow interaction and pitch reduction, stabilizing the car's height and posture during acceleration and braking. However, these choices also stiffen the suspension, making it harder to navigate curbs and potentially reducing driver sensitivity under braking as the chassis experiences fewer movements. Another distinctive feature of the British car is the unusual placement of the steering arm behind the lower wishbone, once again aiming for better airflow interaction, but at the cost of influencing the wheel's steering angles. Overall, Ferrari and McLaren showcase different compromises between mechanical and aerodynamic priorities, placing varying emphasis on different performance areas. However, this does not necessarily mean that lap times will be far apart. On the contrary, as seen in 2024, they could be very close, with small fluctuations favoring one or the other depending on the circuit. It is therefore a matter of details. At this stage before the new season, all attention is inevitably focused on the cars, with questions about which is the more convincing. However, design differences may take a back seat to the human factor. According to estimates made by the Ferrari engineers and technicians, McLaren's average advantage in terms of qualifying performance at the end of the 2024 Formula One Championship was just 30 milliseconds, a margin that can easily be overturned or doubled with the slightest setup change. As a result, tire management could become the most crucial variable, especially with the debut of the new Pirelli tires and the expertise of Ferrari's new technical director, Leclerc, in tire dynamics. Many uncertainties remain as the three-day testing session, which is scheduled to take place at the 5.412-kilometer Bahrain International Circuit in Scuderia, will provide a clearer picture of the competitive landscape at the start of the 2025 Formula One season. With a stable rule set promising a tighter field and the looming overhaul of 2026 regulations demanding early attention, teams face a delicate balancing act between short-term gains and long-term planning. Given Ferrari's strong finish to 2024 and its expectations of being in title contention once again this year, the team's development strategy will be more critical than ever. Their 2025 challenger, the SF-25, has already undergone significant changes, including a shift from pushrod to pull-rod front suspension, a move designed to unlock greater performance potential. Ferrari, like their rival teams, faces a tough call on when to pivot their full focus toward F1's radically different 2026 regulations. The challenge of managing short-term performance with long-term planning is not new, but history has shown the risks involved. Ferrari team principal Frédéric Vasseur referenced the 2021 title fight between Mercedes and Red Bull, where both teams continued bringing upgrades deep into the season despite looming regulation changes. Ultimately, the Maranello team's development path will depend on their competitiveness in the opening races.